We now come to the final speaker of this evening's session, Mrs. Suman Frady. Suman lives in the UK. She is of North Indian origin and runs a digital advertising company with her husband. Over to you, Suman.
So my story starts in February 2008 in the UK when I was in labour with our first son, Ravi. Our original plan was to have a home birth, but I kind of lost control of the whole labour process, and I wasn't being very compliant. I wouldn't let the midwife check me to see how dilated I was. I'd got through a couple of canisters of gas, which was quite a lot apparently for such a short space of time, and I think I just lost control. And she decided in her wisdom that the best place for me at that point would be hospital, because she just couldn't tell, how much I'd progressed. So we ended up in hospital. And while I was there, I had an epidural that gave me some relief. And at which point they did some tests on me, and they came back and told us that I wouldn't be able to give birth naturally because I had a condition, and that condition didn't allow for me to go through the natural process of labour. However, I could try and push. I could have a go. I guess I could go through the motions of that, but ultimately my baby was going to be delivered by a cesarean because it just wasn't something that my body could do. If I'm honest, I didn't really think about it too much. I didn't have the strength, and I was just exhausted. My husband and I were kind of on the same page with just kind of whatever had to happen, we were happy with it to happen. Like it wasn't the worst thing at all. It wasn't part of the plan, but it's okay. It's kind of come to that, and we're happy with that decision to have a cesarean section. And I just trusted the doctors that whatever they were saying was what it was. I had no reason to kind of rebel against that. I didn't feel at all that, I wanted to go through the motions. At that point, I just wanted to have the baby. And if it meant going the cesarean route, after almost, over a day and a half in labour, I think there was just kind of light at the end of the tunnel just to hear that. So we had the cesarean. There were no complications. Fast forward 11 years, I was pregnant with our second son. So we're in India now, and I had registered in a local hospital, and they were great, didn't have any problems with them. They would run their tests, and had a fairly good relationship with the doctor. I mean, she answered all my questions, and she had a lot of time for me. But after a while, I started feeling a little unsettled about the conversations around choosing a date to give birth. Strange, because actually in that I should have been quite comforted, and it's actually very convenient to have a date in the diary and know that that's the day you're going to go get your baby, go have your baby, and it's kind of done. You don't have all the rigmarole. Well, if I'm speaking personally about myself, I didn't have all the rigmarole of my first experience. And so really it was ideal. But there was just something in me that just wasn't sitting right with having to choose a date. And I was having to have these conversations with my doctor a lot. So we're in December now, and the baby was due in February, and she just wanted to know, had I decided? And I spoke to a friend of mine about how I was feeling. She said to me, well, why don't you speak to the doctors at Fernandez? And I'd heard about the Fernandez hospital, but because I'd just registered where I had, I just thought, well, I'll just kind of go with it. I wasn't even sure I could, swap at that late stage. She said, look, I'm not saying you need to change your hospital, but you could just go in here and hear them out and just see what they have to say about how you feel. She said, I know the midwife there, Indy, personally, and the team are great. The girls are great there. You just need to talk to somebody. So why don't you just go talk to them? I arranged an appointment with Indy and an obstetrician, and we got there, and we sat down, And Indy asked me, she said, okay, she said, we'd like to hear your story. Could you share your experience of your first labour with us? Do you know, up until that point, I'd never shared it. I'd never shared my story. Not at the length that I was going to, and not with that detail, and certainly not with a professional medical body. Because there was nothing in me to kind of rebel against the decision that was made. I kind of took it as gospel. You know, it was my first baby, and I didn't at all feel that, you know, I missed out on having a natural birth. I think I was so relieved that I could just have the baby that I kind of left it at that. I also believed absolutely, you know, what they said about not being able to have a natural birth as well. And so there was really nothing to discuss. You know, it just unfortunately had this condition, and it was just something that I just needed to kind of deal with. And if I was going to have another baby, they had made it very clear, you know, book a date, go have your baby, don't go through all this turmoil again. So as I'm sharing my story, I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, I've never done this before. I've never had two people so intently listen to me. After I'd finished, they said to me, okay, they said, they were very empathetic, and they said, oh yeah, it sounds like quite an ordeal. And they said, you know, are you able to get hold of your records? And I said, yeah, I should be able to. They said, if you can do that and you can get them over to India email, we can have a look through, and we're more than happy to see if you can go for a natural birth this time. And at that point, I was a little bit surprised, because I wasn't expecting to talk about having a natural birth, if I'm honest. I was actually just coming for some peace of mind about settling this whole thing about getting a date for the baby. I think I had actually geared myself up to having a cesarean. So when they said to me that there was a possibility, or there could be a possibility, it just kind of opened up a whole new conversation, opened up a whole new other option, and even opportunity, if I can use that word, because in my mind, it just wasn't going to happen. So when somebody kind of brings it up, you think, well, there's an opportunity now for this to happen. So I was half about it. And I think the reason for that was because I had just kind of grown this fear over the years of giving birth naturally. So I got my records sent over, and the team at Fernandez, Indy Obstetricians, and different ones looked at the notes. They got back to me and they said, there's no real reason for why you can't try. We've considered everything on the report, and you know, if you would like to try and give birth naturally this time round, we are here to support you, and we're here to give you the help, the encouragement, anything that you might need. You know, we are here for you. And if things, you know, kind of take another turn, then theatre is waiting. So those things, you know, covering all bases like that is just absolute peace for a pregnant lady, especially in a foreign country. And everything about what they were suggesting, what they were putting to me, seemed fine by me. I remember going home that day, and even in the car, I felt like something had left me. I'd felt a relief, a lightness in my spirit about this whole, you know, event that was about to happen. It just didn't seem so overwhelming anymore. And I think just to be heard by them, you know, after our initial meeting, was healing in itself. And to be honest, I didn't think I needed healing. I didn't even think it was a thing, because I'd buried it for 11 years. I hadn't thought about it. But as I spoke about my experience, I was being listened to, intently heard. There was just this kind of real empathy for me, my situation. And I don't know if this makes sense, but I think for me, it was enough for me to have that peace that I really needed. And what it did was it it offered me an informed decision, which I didn't have at the other hospital. And what I was informed by previously was, not that it wasn't informed, it was kind of told to me. And I had taken that as fact, if you like. But this was me now being informed and being given an opportunity and being given options. And so I think just that in itself just was quite freeing. It was like, oh, okay, I can go another way with this. I just felt courage to be able to do it. These guys, I tell you, at Fernandez are so passionate about what they believe about natural birth and being given the opportunity to offer it. It's absolutely incredible, actually, because they're so professional with it as well. And there's nothing in what they say that you feel obliged to have to do any of this. They literally inform you with what you can do, what is available to you. And I think that there is just something so powerful about being given that option to just say, look, these are the things, and this is the way you could go, which you also have this option. And I didn't feel pushed into anything at all. In fact, they listened more than they said anything. And so just because of time, I'm just going to kind of fast forward again. I went in on the day of on the day that I was going to have Luca, and I went in, and from beginning to end, they were so attentive, and their attentiveness, if I can use that word, again, was just the biggest comfort. It gave me so much strength, so much reassurance, so much courage. I didn't actually fear any of the process from beginning to end, and it was really painful. It was really tough. So many of the stages that were happening the first time around were happening. It was like history repeating itself at each stage. But I seemed to overcome it better this time because I think they were so attentive. There was also, very kind of light conversation with me. They just knew how to communicate with me because I was in so much pain, but there was just this gentleness from Indy and from Teresa, the trainee midwife, and I just felt so safe in their hands. And I think that really, gave me like I said before, the strength to literally push and get Luca out. When I saw his head come out, I have to say, I just felt this sense of achievement that I don't think I've ever felt. I think I had buried this pain and I had become so fearful, and I'd convinced myself that I could never do it, that when it happened, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. This sense of achievement. And that was because of these guys, so empathetic, so attentive, and just, made birth the most natural thing ever. Like, I felt the entire process was so natural that, if you can do it, I just wanted everybody to experience actually how natural it was. There was, other than my epidural, which I needed, there was nothing else that was medical, if you like. The whole experience was the most natural thing. It was hard, but I'm so glad that our paths crossed. And very interesting that I actually didn't necessarily need healing this time. My recovery was so much quicker, mentally, physically. Just the whole thing was a joy. I actually got a lot more healing for my past labour experience through just going through this, if that makes sense. So thank you guys at Fernandez Hospital, Evita, Indy, and the rest of you. You are amazing, and thank you so much for your support. I will never, ever, ever, ever forget your passion and your empathy and your attentiveness, and just you making me feel so special during the entire thing. Bless you guys.